Okay, it's 7:30 p.m. We are going to start this regular meeting of the Rutherford Board of Education on November 15th in 2021. We're going to ask everyone to please stand, if you can, face the flag for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Present.
Mr. Bogosian?
Present. I'm not on. Hello? Oh, I am.
Mr. Conti?
Present.
Mr. Healy?
Here.
Mrs. Jones?
Present.
Mr. Mazzone?
Here.
Dr. Racine?
Here.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Present.
Dr. Olati?
Here.
You have a quorum.
The New Jersey Open Public Meetings Act was enacted to ensure the right of the public to have advance notice of and to attend the meeting of public bodies at which any business affecting their interests is discussed or acted upon. In accordance with the provisions of this act, the Rutherford Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published by having the date, time, and place posted on the bulletin board outside the Borough Clerk's office, mailed to the Herald, South Bergenite, and the Record newspapers, and filed with the Borough Clerk. Hard copies of the agenda are available in the meeting room, and the agenda is posted electronically on Friday before the meeting date on the district's website at www.rutherfordschools.org. Subsequent to the meeting, a video of the meeting will be uploaded to the district's website, www.rutherfordschools.org. The video link can be found by opening the Board of Education link and clicking on Public Meetings and then Videos. So board members, in your packets this evening, you have two sets of meeting minutes to approve. One is the regular meeting and the other is the executive session, both taking place on October 25th, 2021. Does anyone have any questions or comments about those? Hearing none, I'll ask Mr. Kelly to please enter those. Okay, and now we are going to hear from our student representative for their report. Richard.
Good evening, everyone. As we begin the second quarter of the year, I wanted to say how proud I am of all the students of Rutherford High School for what they've accomplished so far this year. With everyone back in the building, I feel that we are getting more stuff done. Homecoming was a great success, and the dance was a big turnout. On the day of the homecoming game, we marched from the driveway to the football field, greeting the community as we walked. As a senior, it was great being the first class online. It was great watching the football team crush Pompton Lakes 28-7. Congratulations to Connor Finan, who was nominated as Heart of a Giant for the football team. As far as any other events happening, seniors have been submitting their college applications and meeting with their guidance counselors to go over the process. Some topics the guidance counselors go over with the seniors include the Common App, deadlines, academic records, and recommendation letters. In September, the guidance counselors went to the senior PE and health classes to review the process and hand out transcripts. Most students have their applications done by January 1st. This can be stressful and overwhelming, but also very exciting for some students. As Thanksgiving approaches, fall sports are starting to come to an end, and winter sports will be starting up. With that said, the fall varsity dinner at the Fiesta will be November 29th. Last week, the Spanish Club and Spanish Honor Society collected food donations for the Rutherford Food Pantry this Thanksgiving. In closing, thank you for listening to my report, and I hope you have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Raffanello. Well, I want to start by saying it's a very thorough and well-rounded report. Really appreciate the student perspective about everything going on in the district, so thank you for that. Questions or comments from board members? See how thorough you were? We don't even have questions left. You're so thorough, we don't have any questions left for you. Well, we really do appreciate your perspective, and I I know it's the evening, and if you would like to stay for the remainder of the meeting, you are invited to. If you do need to get back to do homework or anything else like that, we also understand. But want to thank you for being here this evening and sharing with us.
Absolutely.
All right, we're going to move on now to the report of the superintendent.
Thank you. Congratulations to, am I on? Congratulations to Dr. Alati, Dr. Racine, Mrs. Med for being reelected to the board.
Thank you.
And when the board reorganizes on January 3rd, you'll be sworn in again as the board begins anew for the next calendar year. To follow up a little bit on Rich's report, congratulations to our football team who won in the state semifinals Friday night, sectional semifinals. This Saturday at noon, they'll be playing in the sectional final at Tryon Field beginning at 12 noon. The winner of that game then advances to the group, the overall Group 2 or Group 1 or Group 3, we're Group 2 championship, and that's the games that will most likely be played at MetLife or at one of the universities. So the next week is the sectional final. For those of you who remember, several years ago, the sectional final was the ultimate game, and that was played at the stadium, but they've added another round, so the sectional finals played. It'll be at Tryon Field at noon. I also want to congratulate 10th grader Danny Fensick. Danny was selected to the New Jersey State Choir, which is quite an honor, and we've had some students in the past who have done that, but he's also was selected, which is the first that I can recall, to the National Choir, which is quite a honor and distinction for both his talent, his hard work, and for the music program here in the school. So we congratulate Danny on that accomplishment. The all-school play is on at the high school is November 19th and 20th at 7:30 in the evening. It's called Play On, which is a comedy about a play production. And, this year, as Rich said, having everybody back is very different. It's great to be back where we have plays and home athletic events and the like. As we get into December, Pierpont will be having their winter concert on December 15th, and it will be held on the stage in the new gym. So that's going to be an exciting night, especially for parents who have had children in Pierpont concerts and know how difficult it was to either get into that facility or often have to come here to the high school. It'll be great to have it in the gym at Pierpont. And I believe Monday night, Recreation will be starting to use the gym for some of their programs. So we're very happy that we're progressing with the construction. The high school winter concert is the night after Pierpont's here, and that will be December 16th. A reminder to the Strategic Planning Committee that we're going to be meeting on the 30th at 7 o'clock via Zoom with the demographer to go over that report. I also want to mention later on in the agenda, I'll be commenting on a few items as we get there, but twice a year I have to present to the board for approval the self-assessment of our HIB program in terms of how we follow the policy, procedure, programs we do to train faculty and staff, programs we do for students, and that's in the agenda tonight for approval for me to submit that to the state. Then the state reviews it and sends back the score, which every year has always been the same, but it could vary. And then when I get that back, I have to report that back to the board, and we have to accept that. So this is the first approval. The score is a 74.2 out of a possible 78. So again, the self-assessment, that's pretty consistent with what we've done in other years. And if you have questions when we get to that part of the agenda, you could ask. I also want to remind everybody, usually I remember as a high school principal, was one thing I never had to remind people of was when school was closed, but we are closed for a one-session day. We end with a one-session day on the 24th in anticipation of Thanksgiving weekend, and school's closed obviously on the 25th and the 26th. Okay? And I will be commenting on some agenda items when we get there in the program. So that's it.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. Any questions from board members? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the report of the president. I'll keep it brief. First, congratulations to my colleagues, Dr. Racine, Mrs. Ahmed. Very excited and humbled to be able to serve with you for another 3 years.
Same here.
Definitely enjoy board work. It is challenging and rewarding, and love the town and the people. So I think we all know that it's worth it, and it's an important role. So thank you to the community for your trust in the three of us. Want to thank everyone for submitting the Board of Education evaluation. Our self-evaluation is an important opportunity for us to reflect on areas of strength and also areas of growth, so we'll go over that briefly in executive session. Want to say a quick thank you to Mr. Hurley, Mr. Kelly, administrators and teachers. We don't just have a normal year, we also have referendum and facilities projects, which I know at times inconvenience people, but at the same time, we're getting a lot of great progress done. Still navigating aspects of the pandemic, and we have CUSAC, so every 3 years we get evaluated based on different standards, so we're excited and confident to go through that process this year. I do want to say it was a pleasure this past Wednesday to go to the Board of Education Scholastic Awards and to talk briefly in front of those 10th, 11th, and 12th graders who won the bronze pins. It was really great to have them all there back in person. And look forward this Wednesday to welcoming our silver pin and gold pin winners. And really a great tribute, the fact that we've had more winners to those Scholastic Awards than any other year, at least that Mr. Hurley can remember. So that's really exciting. And that is about it for my report. Any questions or comments? All right, hearing none. At this time, we're going to open up the meeting to the public for items related to the agenda at 7:43 p.m. Okay, seeing and hearing none, we're going to close the meeting at 7:43 p.m. to the public, and we are going to move into new business where action is going to be taken, and we are going to start with personnel. Mrs. Ahmed.
Thank you, Mr. President. Tonight, we'll be moving 1 through 18. We're skipping over, I believe, what, 17, Mr. Hurley?
Number 14.
14. She's included later on. So number 1, sorry. Number 1, John Cowell, head custodian at Union School, retirement, effective July 1st. 2, Victoria Hathbarth, approve her as an elementary teacher for Pierpont School District, effective November 22nd. 3, Bianca Yanis, I think, part-time teacher assistant at Washington School, to approve her on November 16th. 4, Elizabeth David Miley, to approve Elizabeth as a lunch monitor at Pierpont School, effective November 16th. 5 is Nancy Rettenberger, to increase in her hours as a lunch monitor at Pierpont School. 6, Bulldog Care Counselor, before and after care. Approve Robert Bloom as a counselor for the Bulldog Care Program for the district. 7, Bulldog Care Counselor, before and after care. To approve Tony DeSalvo as a substitute counselor for the Bulldog Care Program for the district. Also, let's see. 8, Bulldog Care Program Helping Hands. To approve as Helping Hands of Bulldog Care Program, the district, for the district. This is a good one. Harithika Chilani and Catherine Bardsell. 9, intern, to approve interns Alvaro Talub from William Patterson University. School counselor concentration, and Rosa Gomez, William Patterson also. Contract for school counseling concentration also. 10, Shay Bender, to approve the extension of her maternity leave. 11, Bridget Lowe, to approve extension of Bridget Lowe's maternity leave from an end approve the extension of Bridget Lowe's maternity leave from an end date of February 7th. Does that make sense to everyone? Okay. Then we have elementary co-curricular, number 12. Create a new stipend position for assistant play director for Pierpont School and appoint Daniel O'Connor to the position for the 2021-22 school year. High school co-curricular, to approve the following high school co-curricular assignment stipends for the 21-22 school year. Sean Mulligan, volunteer stage crew director for the musical. We're going to cross out 14 because we're going to pertain to her later on. 15, substitute teachers. Be it resolved by the Rutherford Board of Education, approve the following substitute teacher for the 21-22 school year, Victoria Hackworth, sorry about that. 16, travel reimbursements for Rachel, teacher, and this was, I don't know what that activity was. Do you, Mr.?
It's a reading program.
Okay. And then curriculum and instruction motions, also recommendation of, no, or that's on it. 17 and 18 then we added on, and that was Victoria Lutz, Washington school teacher, November 8th, a long-term substitute elementary teacher, and then Victoria Lutz also approved as a leave replacement elementary teacher at Washington School from November 15th through June 30th. And that's it for today.
All right, thank you. Questions or comments from board members? Hearing none,
I'd like to
Mr.
make one comment if I can on Mr. Qual from Union School, our head custodian. He's retiring at the end of this year, 32 years in the district, and if you've been by Union School, I mean, he is really, in many ways, the face of Union School. Very personable guy. He's always out greeting kids and parents, and does a great job maintaining the buildings. We'll have him here for the rest of the year, but I want to acknowledge the tremendous job he's done for us and will continue to do for us until the end of the year.
Thank you, Mr. Hurley, for that acknowledgement. Any questions or comments from board members? Ms. Jones?
One on Mr. John Hull. He always was so proud of his floors, and when we used to do school inspections, like, at the end of the beginning of the school year, he would beam when I would look at his floors, and you could see your face in them. They were just so shiny, and he took great pride. He will be missed.
Thank you. Other questions or comments? Hearing none, Mrs. Ahmed, do you want to move those?
So, with the board's approval, I'm presenting 1 through, I guess we would say, 16, excluding 14. How's that?
1 through 18.
1 through 18.
So 1 through 18, excluding 14.
All right, thank you. Do we have a second? Mr. Sprayberry, any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Next, we're going to move on to curriculum and instruction. Ms. Jones?
Thank you. We did not have a curriculum and instruction meeting since our last board meeting. And tonight we have 8 resolutions for board member consideration, which were put forth by the recommendation of the superintendent. Resolution 1, Anti-Bullying Bill of Rights Act. 2 is a service provider. We're now going to have AFC Urgent Care in Lyndhurst, New Jersey. 3 is field trips. They're up to about 24 now. Emergency bus evacuation drills is resolution number 4. 5 is home instruction for 1 student. And resolution 6, 7, and 8 are harassment, intimidation, and bullying decisions. And that's what we have tonight.
All right, questions or comments from board members? Mr. Hurley, anything you want to touch on?
No, unless any questions on the PIB, but I think that's pretty self-explanatory, right?
Yep.
All right, hearing none, Mr.
I
Jones?
move resolutions 1 through 8 under curriculum and instruction.
Great. Mr. Bogosian seconds. Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we'll move on to Finance. Dr. Racine.
I'm pleased to do the shortest finance agenda that I ever remember.
History.
One item, which means next month will be long because of timing. So that's why. Item 1 is the approval of bills, and that is it.
Okay. Questions and comments from board members? Dr. Racine, you want to move those?
I will move that one.
We have a second, Mr. Mazzone. Any last comments or questions? Hearing none, Mr. Kelly.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion carried. Thank you.
Thank you. Policy, Mr. Healy.
Yes, we did not have a committee meeting since our last board meeting, and there are no resolutions for this evening.
All right. Thank you very much. And we will move on then to Buildings and Grounds. Mr. Sprayberry.
Good evening. We did not have a meeting since our last meeting. There are 4 resolutions from the superintendent for approval. 3 of them are to deal with the Lincoln and Washington School boiler replacements. And ones in 1 and 2 are to unsubmit plans previously submitted and new plans to be submitted based on an award to DeSessa Engineering to replace the 2 boilers and some additional adult work at $799,000. And then Resolution 3 is change order at the high school to replace some windows, electrical cost, and code compliance and fire alarm at Pierpont School. Mr. Kelly, if you'd like to add anything to those?
Yeah, number 1, we rescinded at the request of the state because we didn't have that wording. You'll see on motion number 2, projects are considered as other capital projects, which means that there's no state funding for this, which we knew that. We never expected it, so we paid for that. The bid opening, we did have a successful bid opening. The low bidder was DeSessa Engineering. They came in slightly over budget, but the only other bidder came in about 3 times higher than budget. So we've had a lot of very good experience with DeSessa before. So we're very encouraged by this. Change orders. The Mortimer wing. Our balance in that allowance management is now about $156,000, so we're doing okay on that one. Pierpont, as we've discussed, we've used the entire allowance management. Now we have change orders approved. So the allowance was $250,000. We have about $222,000 additional change orders there. So that's what we're asking you to approve, just that $25,000 and $25,000. So that's it for tonight. Any questions on those?
Mr. Conti?
Yeah, the boiler, what's the timeline for that boiler project?
The boiler probably won't get done until the summer of '23 at this point. We're looking at lead times on the equipment needed of up to 10 months or so, which would put us past next summer. So we want to get this awarded so we can order those, or DeSessa can order the equipment that they need, so we'll be ready to go whenever we're ready to go.
Okay. Questions or comments from board members? Hearing none. Mr. Sprayberry, you want to move those?
Yes, we'd like to move motions 1 through 4 as per the superintendent.
All right. We have a second. Mr. Healy? Any other questions or comments? Ms. Jones, did you have a question?
No, sorry.
No? Okay. Mr. Kelly, please take roll.
Mrs. Ahmed?
Yes.
Mr. Bogosian?
Yes.
Mr. Conti?
Yes.
Mr. Healy?
Yes.
Mrs. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Mazzone?
Yes.
Dr. Racine?
Yes.
Mr. Sprayberry?
Yes.
Dr. Oladi?
Yes.
Motion's carried. Thank you.
Okay, that was about 11 minutes to get through new business. That was very impressive. All our board meetings run that way. Okay, old business. Does any board member have old business they'd like to bring up? Mr. Healy?
Two short ones. Mrs. Jones and I will be attending the New Jersey SBA Delegate Assembly this Saturday. There's no new resolutions being reviewed, which is odd, but they are reviewing their 57 policies, and they'll be reviewed and reaffirmed. So if anybody else wants to attend, no. That's it. And the other thing is, I just wanted to thank Mr. Kelly. I'm registered for the New Jersey SBA Fall Law Forum, so thank you.
Other old business. All right, I just have one thing, just a reminder to board members to please hand in your committee and liaison assignments. If you can get those in either tonight or next board meeting, and we'll be going over those, and then assignments will be given out at the reorganization meeting on the first Monday of January. Any other old business? Hearing none, we'll move on to legislative update. Ms. Jones.
Yes, I have reported on these as bills that were pending. They have now been signed by Governor Murphy, and they're a rather important one. Student depression screenings. This is Assembly Bill 970 and Senate Bill 2259. This establishes the mental health screening in schools grant program in the New Jersey Department of Education. The districts will be able to apply for funding and resources to implement annual depression screening programs to identify students in grades 7 through 12 who are at risk of depression. And this bill places a variety of conditions on any school districts receiving grant under the program. And the other one is STEM opportunities for young women and minorities. This was also signed by the governor. This is Assembly Bill 1625 and Senate Bill 2854, and it aims to increase representation of young women and minorities in science, technology, engineering, and math degree programs and careers.
All right, thank you, Ms. Jones. Any comments or questions on the legislative update? Okay, hearing none. We are going to move on to the second open portion of the meeting, where we open it up to community members. If community members have something they'd like to say, we'd ask you to come up to the microphone, state your full name and your address. We'd ask you to keep your comments to about 3 minutes. And for those of you who are new to a board meeting this evening, thank you for coming. As a board, we truly appreciate hearing all comments that people in the community have. We do ask that a couple of things. First off, as board members, this open public session is not a back and forth in terms of a conversation, but it doesn't mean we aren't listening. It doesn't mean what you're saying is not important. We operate in committees, and we do committee work behind the scenes. So at the end of the open session, either Mr. Hurley or myself as board president may choose to make comments to respond to those that have been made. But we do take seriously everything that you're saying, and the work we do is in committee session. The last thing I just wanted to say is that I ask that, and I appreciate that we've always been able to keep comments very respectful. It's one of the things I love about this community, is our ability to give feedback in a productive way that's in the best interest of the district. So going to ask you to keep your comments to 3 minutes, and if you have comments to make that are specific, I ask you to not name specific people, again, in the spirit of being respectful, and that's it. So for those who would like to speak, and just make sure you're facing us because you're addressing the board when you make comments. We welcome those who would like to speak at open session. Come on up.
Hi. My name's Carrie Smith, and my address is 160 Jackson Avenue. I was hoping I could raise my hand and be called on, because the last time I raised my hand in Rutherford School was in 1988 when I graduated from Rutherford High School. And just coming here tonight and being back in the school after all this time and hearing the student report, I am just so happy and I meant to come to express my gratitude to you all, to our schools, to our teachers, to the staff, to the nurses. And during the pandemic, the way you handled everything, I just really came briefly just to say thank you all so, so much. I had a great experience in the Rutherford school system, my parents, my brothers, my sister-in-law, just everyone. And I'm so excited to be here, and I'm so grateful to be able to speak and thank all of you in public. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I did mean to say that at 8 p.m. we did open the meeting to the public. So other comments from the public?
Hi, Katie Pippin, 261 Santiago Avenue. My son Caleb is in 3rd grade at Washington School. He's an amazing kid with a beautiful, diverse group of friends. His friends have black and brown faces. His friends with kids on the autism spectrum. He's friends with kids who are gay, and even a couple of transgender kids. I love my kid just as he is, and I love all my kids' friends just as they are, and I'm proud that the curriculum in Rutherford is helping my village by educating these awesome kids in an environment that celebrates diversity and promotes equity and inclusion. Because each and every one of these kids deserves representation and deserves to be welcomed and supported in the schools as well as in the community. I don't understand why any parent would be opposed to a curriculum that supports social emotional learning, comprehensive health, and diversity, equity, and inclusion for marginalized communities. I don't understand why any parent would take it upon themselves to hassle the Board of Ed for teaching what boils down to kindness and respect. If a parent has that much time and effort, that parent surely has time to homeschool their children. Mr. Hurley and the members of the Board of Ed, please know that the vast majority of parents in Rutherford support an inclusive education for our kids and trust that the school system is only putting curriculum in place that benefits our children. It's ridiculous that we've had to rally to voice this support because a handful of parents can't handle their precious babies learning these valuable life skills. We're living in the digital age where children have access to all the world's information and misinformation. I, for one, would rather that our kids learn about these things in an age-appropriate educational environment rather than the dark corners of the internet. Thank you for supporting an inclusive curriculum, and I urge you to stay the course.
All right, I am going to ask that we just hold applause so we can get through all the comments. I appreciate the spirited applause, but don't want anyone to feel less or more because of the amount of applause. But please, go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jody Ovarsi. I live at 74 Union Avenue. First, I want to thank you for resuming taping the school board meetings. As a single parent who works full-time, I cannot always attend in person, and recording them makes it possible for me and many others to stay informed of what's going on. So, thank you. After I watched the last school board meeting, I felt compelled once again to come and speak because, as with the mask debate, I worry that only the loudest are being heard, even if they are not the majority. After watching the video of the last meeting, I was very disheartened to see the backlash against SEL. Social emotional learning is a method in which to increase a student's emotional intelligence, or EQ. Countless studies have shown that EQ is now more important than IQ in terms of future success and fulfillment. The great thing about that is, unlike IQ, which is determined by a variety of factors, including genetics and environment, and it's a somewhat fixed number throughout your lifetime, regardless of your education or knowledge, EQ can be nurtured, taught, and increased through simple things such as SEL. SEL is not therapy or progressive indoctrination. It's not a replacement for what's being taught at home. It's rather an enhancement and a reinforcement of skills we all want our children to possess. I did some research as to what SEL looks like in the New Jersey schools, according to the New Jersey Department of Education. There are tons of resources for educators and families on the DOE website, but it basically boils down to 5 principles, which I know have been highlighted before by Superintendent Hurley and some other people. Self-awareness, self-motivation, self-management, empathy, and relationship management. As someone who has interviewed and hired hundreds of people in many different industries, I can personally tell you that candidates who demonstrate these principles are far more likely not only to get the job, but to advance within a company. I did not have the good fortune to grow up in a town like Rutherford with a great public school system. I grew up in a major city whose public schools were seriously lacking, especially in the 1980s. So my parents decided to send me and my brother to a conservative Christian school that was pretty much the only private option in our area at that time. The schools were very safe, the class sizes were considerably smaller, and I received an excellent education. But there were many things my brother and I were taught in that environment that were in direct contrast to what our family's core beliefs were, especially regarding things like inclusion, LGBTQ acceptance, and women's rights. My parents knew that it was their responsibility to teach us that there is a difference between what you are taught and what you believe. That lesson has served me very well for the last 49 years. People complain about the culture of everyone getting a trophy, but then expect the public education system to cater to their family's individual beliefs. I'm sorry, but you can't have it both ways. As a parent of 2 children currently in Rutherford schools, I am happy to see the tenets of SEL being supported on a state and local level. Greater emotional intelligence can not only help individual students in our community, but society as a whole. When I was researching, I came across a quote. I wish I could attribute it to the original author, but it was uncited. But I feel that it's 100% pertains to the discussion tonight. The purpose of a public education in a public school is not to teach the kids only what the parents want them to be taught. It is to teach them what society needs them to know. The client of the public school is not the parent, but the entire community, the public. So thank you again to the Board of Education, Superintendent Hurley, the teachers and staff of Rutherford Public School District, and the state of New Jersey for working towards creating a curriculum that not only focuses on academic success, but also the social and emotional well-being of all children. Thank you.
Hello, good evening. My name is Dawn Avagliano Schumacher, and I reside at 130 Mountain Way. I wanted to show my support for all of your efforts and state requirements with incorporating SEL, social emotional learning, curriculum concepts, critical race theory, and LGBTQ PIA inclusion education, which has been suggested by and mandated by the state of New Jersey. Recently, I've been made aware of some opposition to this programming, and their angle is to attack the administrators of our district regarding transparency. Their efforts, I believe, are meant to bring attention to the subject matter so that other parents may also speak up against these informational and very much needed enhanced curriculums. From the positiveaction.net website, it says, enhanced SEL skills in turn affect student social character development, supportive attitudes, and skills both directly and through improvements in relevant facets of the school and classroom environment. Improvements in student social and character development and supportive areas then yield both reductions in student behavioral and emotional problems and gains in school attendance, grades, test scores with impacts in these 2 domains mutually facilitating one another. Why any parent would have feelings that disagree with that concept of helping all of our children become better citizens as they grow up is beyond my comprehension. There have been numerous research studies over the last 20 years which prove that a social emotional learning curriculum can help enhance all of these different areas regarding a child's path on their way to adulthood. Some of those include a reduction of absenteeism with attending school more often every day, improvements across the board with test scores and standardized testing in math and English. A larger percentage of students will go to college with continuing their education after high school, and the dropout rate goes down. Fewer students will have tried drinking alcohol, and even less will have tried a second drink or drugs when the social emotional learning curriculum is included. Studies show that there's a significant decrease in bullying behaviors by students and their own parents as well, with the SEL curriculum incorporated into their school days. The character traits of the students have been improved upon as well. Less students will break the school's rules, they have more self-control, respect and consideration for others, and social bonding occurs among their peers, and they are also more honest. School crimes also occur less frequently. Violent behaviors and even the rate of carrying a weapon goes down significantly when social emotional learning inclusion occurs during their school days. But the fact of the matter is this: I don't really need to tell you, Superintendent Hurley, about any of these facts, nor do I need to tell the principals of every school in our borough, or the teachers. You have all been trained with years of education with knowing how these additional inclusive curriculums can help all of our student body. And I trust you will always have our kids' best interests in mind. I've seen that empathy and care happen over the 12 years that my own children have been attending Rutherford schools. So I am just here tonight to express my immense gratitude for all of the good work that you continue to do for all of our students. I support the SEL, CRT, LGBTQ, PIA inclusion curriculums, and I support you. Thank you, Mr. Hurley, and the entire Board of Education.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hello, John Ludwith, 328 Montrose. First, thank you for having us be able to speak. I'd like to express my support for SEL and in general and the inclusion curriculum in particular here at Rutherford schools. My children at Lincoln and Pierpont get a lot out of it. I especially appreciate how it's integrated with everything else. Theoretical knowledge is one thing, but applied knowledge is that much more. So the fact that it just is all together in one package and nothing is lost, everything is gained. And I really appreciate that. Regarding books as part of the curriculum, I can understand there are a lot of books to consider, especially as kids get older and different age groups and different books are out there. I did see that one particular book was put in abeyance, quote, removing it as an option for 6th grade, pending further review. And I would just like to know how that process works. Was the board involved in that? Is it a choice by the superintendent? What's the process going forward? How can we know what books are in or out? My son in 2nd grade, they had a vote around election day for recess or snack, longer recess or longer snack. I was so pleased that they did this. They all accepted the outcome. And I would hope that the administrators and the elected board do this, practice the same thing, practice what they teach. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Other comments?
Hi, my name is Cynthia Chauvin-Dalton, and I live at 36 Riverview Avenue. And I am here to thank you for and to speak in favor of Rutherford's SEL and DEI curricula. Numerous studies have shown that emotional IQ is critical in today's workplace. In fact, an article in Forbes magazine in September was entitled, "Empathy is the most important leadership skill," and it cited several studies. Why would anyone object to such an important leadership skill being taught in Rutherford Public Schools? Our schools have been engaging in social and emotional learning for years under different names such as monthly character traits. At Lincoln School this month, the character trait is bravery. Last month, it was fairness. Washington School's website talks about grit. These are traits that our country was founded on. Our forefathers and mothers needed bravery to stand up to the situation that they found unfair. I support teaching these traits as essential to student success and to the future of our country. I am concerned, like the previous speaker, that a book has been put in abeyance. I hope this is only temporary. I've read that book, it's an excellent book, and I don't think we should shy away from the tough subjects. Our curriculum should reflect the diversity of our student population of Rutherford. I would like to know what the procedure is, and I would like to ask that an immediate replacement be placed into the 6th grade curriculum to ensure that our books, the books our students can read are by authors who reflect them. Thank you.
Hi, Victoria Bragan McGregor. I live at 53 Vreeland. I'm here to support SEL, social emotional learning, and to thank the Rutherford Board of Education for helping my daughter and my community to have a well-rounded, up-to-date education. You can't make everyone happy all the time. A curriculum certainly can't satisfy all, but a person can be equipped with the tools to manage that disappointment. That is a perfect example where the benefits of social emotional learning come into play. Did you know that people with strong social emotional skills are better able to cope with everyday challenges and benefit academically, professionally, and socially from effective problem solving to self-discipline, from impulse control to emotion management and more? Social emotional learning provides a foundation for positive, vital, long-term effects for kids, adults, and by extension, communities. Children thrive, schools win, workplaces benefit, society strengthens. I cannot imagine why a parent that loves and wants the most for their children would have an issue with social emotional learning. What is it they fear? To help me understand, I took to the internet, not social media, hoping to learn more about perspectives that differ than mine. I wanted to find information to support the thinking of those who have negative perceptions about social emotional learning. Not surprising to me, there was very little out there from sources that I consider credible. Parents aren't creating something of their own that only they control. Raising a child is loving, protecting, teaching, and ultimately releasing a fully realized human whose experiences from the beginning are their own. A human that can grow up empowered, confident, resilient, and with character. One that can cope and navigate the inevitable challenges of life, and with those tools have a greater chance of success. Some think social emotional learning detracts from traditional learning. Retaining data has become less necessary. We have the internet at our fingers. I'd like my daughter to have both, but if I had to choose in today's world, street smarts win. So, book banning. John F. Kennedy said, "If this nation is to be wise as well as strong, if we are to achieve our destiny," a bunch of stuff in between, "we must know all the facts and hear all the alternatives and listen to all the criticisms. Let us welcome controversial books and controversial authors." Social emotional learning creates empathy. Book banning creates apathy. People's stories remain unheard, and we remain ignorant and narrow-minded. I know some books have a lot of debatable topics, and I appreciate that some parents are opposed to that. Do I want my daughter to learn about hate, racism, sexual deviance, and so on? No, not all of them. Not yet, for some, and some not ever. But she has to. It's non-negotiable. This is the real world. Dialogue in the classroom combined with social emotional learning built into the curriculum will help my daughter learn and to discuss topics that may be awkward. Education is very different than when most of us grew up. The world has changed and it has become much bigger. We are not all experts. That is why we need to have trust in our educators, leave teaching to the teachers, and science to the scientists. Teachers have been schooled on best practices, and they can help our children attain their goals. I have faith in their expertise. Ultimately, I stand with knowledge, science, and evidence versus ignorance. I stand with the New Jersey Department of Education. I stand with teachers and the Rutherford Board of Education. Thank you.
Go ahead.
Good evening. My name is Violetta Makash, 229 Orient Way, Rutherford.
I'm sorry,
I have
could
a
you just
question.
speak up?
Sorry, can you hear me?
Now we can. Could you just say your name and address again?
Violetta Makash, 229 Orient Way.
You good?
He just has to write it down, so you have to be a little clearer.
Violetta Makash, 229 Orient Way, Rutherford.
you.
I just have a question. Who has access to our kids' cameras on the Chromebook? Because several kids have noticed, even when they're during class, the camera's light just goes on.
I didn't get the question about camera.
Who has access to Chromebooks' cameras? Because while kids are in school, the cameras keeps going on. The camera light goes on. So who records our kids? That's what I want to know.
Nobody, the student has access, but nobody's recording the student now.
So how come the cameras goes on?
I'd have to find out. I have no idea.
Thank you.
First time I've ever heard of this.
No, actually, several kids mentioned that, so
Well,
I
no,
just
I'm not
wanted
saying they
to.
haven't mentioned it.
No,
First
no,
time
no, but I
I've
just was curious about this.
Okay, I'll find out.
That's it. Thank you.
Other comments from the public?
Hello. I'm Jessica Warren Frazier. I'm at 127 Wheaton Place, and I want to reiterate all the comments that have been made regarding the SEL curriculum. I highly support it, and I'm very grateful to be in a school district where this is not only being taught as per the state recommendations, but exceeded. As a mental health professional in the field for 20 years, I have seen the impacts of children who have not been provided a foundation that can help them succeed. I'm really grateful to the fact that this is being offered in the school setting with so many well-trained professionals and the support of people we can trust to keep our children safe and healthy and to help them become the best people they can in a society that is not always the easiest to live in, especially in the climate of today with the pandemic and everything. I've seen it especially in the last year and a half with so many young people struggling. The support that is being offered through the schools is something that every child needs. And I just want to express my gratitude. And I also wanted to say how awesome this community is. There's so many people who are here I haven't met in person, but we're friends on Facebook, so I can't wait. We became friends through the pandemic, and I can't wait to see them like in person out in real life because they're all really awesome. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Weiss, 84 West Pierpont Avenue. I know that many boards of education are being met with angry parents looking to push social and political agendas at meetings. So I've come tonight not to add to that negativity, but to speak in favor of our Board of Ed and express my gratitude. Thank you, Rutherford, BOE, and Mr. Hurley for keeping our kids safe by enforcing the common sense measures that have prevented catastrophic spread of COVID. Thank you for including and integrating people with disabilities, people of diverse ethnic backgrounds, and LGBTQ+ humans into the learning tools our children use in all of their classes, from social studies to mathematics. Thank you for the social emotional learning curricula aimed at helping children to be good citizens and share acts of kindness with their peers. My kids gave me examples of these open-ended SEL activities, and I'm grateful they have a forum to offer their own suggestions on kindness, how to be welcoming to a new person, how to be a good listener. How wonderful that they're being encouraged to think for themselves and be solution-oriented, to lead with respect for others. I know that typically you, the members of the BOE, hear only from a very vocal and very small minority who complain or nitpick. But please know the vast majority of parents in this community are grateful for these very programs. That's why I'm here tonight, so everyone can hear someone say it, although others have gone before me. I appreciate that. And that's why I've also called the principal of my daughter's school to thank her for implementing and standing by these valuable programs. Let's all do that more. Thank our teachers, our school administrators, and staff. And bringing it full circle, thank you, BOE, for representing the best interests of all the school children in our community. Every one of these children deserves a safe school environment, good teachers to help them improve reading and math comprehension, as well as opportunities to explore how to be kind, helpful, and inclusive. And yes, every one of these kids deserves empathy and respect. Empathy and inclusion are for everyone, and they are the future.
Hi, my name's Kate Traherne, 32 Daniel Avenue, Rutherford. I wasn't going to say anything tonight, but after a blatant example of how social emotional learning helped my son this evening, I thought I should tell you. He was doing his maths homework and he was finding it really difficult, and he was getting very stressed and very anxious, and the tears started flowing. And then before I said anything, he said, "Hang on, Mum," he's 9, he said, "I'm going to do what I was taught at school, and I'm going to release my fists, and I'm going to breathe, and I'm going to take 5 minutes, and then I'm going to go back to my homework." And he did. And after that, he got everything right. So if that's not an example of how it works, then I don't know what is. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Maura Olivo, 80 Beach Street, Rutherford. I was not going to speak tonight, but here I am. I kind of feel like I'm gilding the lily after hearing all these wonderful words. But I have a daughter who is a freshman at Rutherford High School. She's my only child, and every day I send her here. I trust you with her. And I have watched her become this amazing person. And a lot of it has to do with what she's getting from this district. I hear her friends and her talking. There is a kindness, an acceptance, and a decency that I'm thrilled to see. So I want to thank all of you. I want to thank the teachers and the staff of this amazing district. Thank you.
Any other comments from the public?
Hi, my name is Kathy Keller Van Ness. I live at 15 West Newell Avenue. I wasn't going to say anything tonight either, but felt that it was important because in the job that I have, I deal with folks that are coming out of school systems. So I'm a chief talent officer for a global Fortune 500 company. And I have responsibility for overseeing performance management, succession planning, who moves ahead into the organization as they travel throughout their career, giving them guidance on leadership and development. And I can tell you firsthand that I see every day the leaders and the individuals in the organization that I work with and other organizations that I've worked with in the past are those who have high levels of emotional intelligence. The earlier we can have exposure to emotional intelligence and well-being, the better off that our children will be prepared to deal in society. That's also indicative of an inclusive environment where people feel that they can be comfortable and perform as their authentic selves is critically important to success, not only to the individual, but to the companies that they're belonging and joining as well. So thank you all for promoting this curriculum and everything that you do for our kids every day. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
Good evening, Stephanie Marizzo, 222 Orient Way. I actually really wasn't going to say anything tonight, but I changed my mind a few minutes ago. As always, I thank you all for everything that you do. I've been thanking you guys for months, so that's redundant at this point. But I did want to point something out. I'm an educator for 19 years. I know I've told you that a bunch of times, but for anybody else who's, doesn't know me maybe. I'd like to mention a couple things that came up tonight, and I'm just, as an educator, as a parent, I never had a checkbox of, oh, Coda and Rocco have a friend that looked like this identifier, that, okay, they're a well-rounded kid. Parents don't keep checklists like that. Maybe I didn't say that well, but I feel that way. So just some of the things I'm hearing. One of my biggest problems as a parent and as an educator, and I hope this bothers some other people, my mother always said, Stephanie, if you don't have something nice to say, don't say it at all. Don't judge people. I was taught that growing up. I don't know why people think they get to tell other parents when they should feel like they should advocate for their child or for themselves or for how they feel, because we all have a right to stand up here and say what we feel or think for our own children. So getting up here and praising you guys is awesome. In the school, we know we have a great school district. We know we have great teachers. I don't think SEL was ever in jeopardy. This is kind of an interesting dynamic of what's going on tonight, of people coming out to support this. Okay, cool. But that's a different story from people getting up here and saying things like, maybe a parent should just homeschool their kid. You don't have the right to say that to another person here. That is none of your business. You do you. You let parents make their own decisions. Personally, I'm going to say that I really resent comments like things are a political agenda. I've spoken before on behalf of medical things and concerns that I have. That's not a political agenda. That's Stephanie Marizzo looking out for her children. That's my right as a parent, as it's your right as parents to stand up for yours. Also, just to that note, there are no, don't believe everything you read on the internet. There are no fringe Republican groups running amok in Rutherford. Please be very careful with what you're reading on the internet these days. I also resent the parents complaining the loudest. You are all, that comment, just because people show up and they listen, they don't always complain. They speak respectfully. It doesn't mean they're the loudest. It means they're concerned. And their concern hasn't go away. It doesn't wax and wane. Their concern is right on the forefront every day until we're past this. I trust all of you. I trust the teachers. I know you have our kids' best interest at heart. I want to speak about empathy for a moment because I have parents coming up here, we, not I, speaking about empathy and have empathy for other parents and how they feel and their concerns and for how they want to raise their child. But then talking about, and this one was really, this got me, parents speaking about being better citizens and how SEL is helping their child do this. Why are the same parents not behaving the same way? And saying things on social media, stirring pots, and some things are just blatant lies, to gather people to come here to attack one parent, ultimately, who's been speaking out. I don't think that's fair. That's not the community I've grown up in. That's not my Rutherford. I'm embarrassed that people feel it's okay to come here and attack one person. I don't think it's right. I don't think SEL was ever under attack. I think everybody has the right to come advocate for their own child. But I think parents who are speaking that SEL is so great and their kids are good humans from this should maybe practice some of that good humanism themselves and stop stirring the pot on social media and making up blatant lies to aggravate the community.
So I'm going to ask you if you could please wrap up.
That's really it. Thank you so much. And this is really not what's supposed to be said at a Board of Ed meeting, but I really couldn't be quiet because I think there's a misunderstanding on some level. So again, sorry to go off topic, but thank you guys.
Other comments? Okay, seeing none, at 8:33, we are going to close the meeting to the public. And Mr. Hurley,
sure, I'd
would you like to make some comments?
A couple of comments if I can. First of all, thank you, everyone. You know, one of the things I think the board has always done, one of the things I've always tried to do was to listen to people and try to provide answers and know that sometimes the answers are accepted, sometimes they're rejected, but, you know, that's what we do. We listen, we try to respond. So I have a couple of quick comments for the kind of the three topics that came up tonight. I think there were three general themes. I do appreciate everybody coming up and speaking. Social emotional learning, I spoke about at the last meeting. Things that were said tonight, I think, are right on target. It is endorsed by just about every professional educational association in the country, pretty much the world. You can't get a professional journal without there being at least an article or sometimes an issue about it. It is something I've been in the district for 44 years, and one of our speakers, I think it was Ms. Dalton, mentioned that we had character ed back in the 80s. We had emotional intelligence. I think someone mentioned, I might have been Ms. Orvarsi mentioned that. It's always been here in one shape or form. And the studies that I think Ms. Schumacher mentioned, those studies are there. So I do appreciate the comments. I want to just make one mention about the diversity and equity and inclusion. And someone mentioned CRT, right? Critical race theory. We don't teach critical race theory. Critical race theory is not a curriculum matter, but I do want to try to talk about why I think there's some confusion about that. I'm going to be looking at something, just to say it better than I can say it, that comes from the New Jersey School Boards Association. And we talk about, educational equity and what that is, right? And educational equity should be to provide opportunities to achieve excellent outcomes for all students, okay, for all individuals with supports they need. That's equity. It doesn't guarantee success. It guarantees opportunities. And school districts, in the state of New Jersey, follow the standards of the state. And even though, we say we're not teaching critical race theory, which is really started in law school, and it's really a graduate level type of analysis of how historical inequity has impacted decisions, that we don't get to that level of inquiry in an elementary school or even in a high school. It's important to remember that when you teach social studies or you teach history or you teach literacy, obviously topics like racism and sexism and women's rights and civil rights and come up, and they're discussed, okay? No one proselytizes, no one gets up and preaches, but they're discussed. And this year, New Jersey passed a law about diversity, inclusion, and equity, and I'm proud to say that I think we've been pretty good in doing that for a long, long time. But what the law is saying is that we have to highlight in our instruction to promote diversity and examine diversity, okay? And to allow all students, right, regardless of their race or their ethnicity or their gender identity or their physical or mental or emotional disability or whatever it may be, have the opportunities to learn and to see, as someone spoke about before, to have culturally, the CRT that we should be looking at, right, is not critical race theory, but culturally responsible teaching. And what that means is we have to recognize the importance, right, of that we have a diverse bunch of students. We always have. Okay? I mean, 35 years ago, 40 years ago, when I started teaching in this district, we had a huge jump in Korean students that came in. And before we had any acronyms to follow, we got together as a faculty to see how we were going to address and deal with cultural and social influx of students that were new to our borough. So it's not teaching a concept or proselytizing, it is making sure that students have some acknowledgement of their life experience, their culture, and that we are aware of that as we work to educate them. And I think that's a big difference of what people look at. And I wanted to make sure that was clear. Now, as far as the book is concerned, there is a policy and there is a process where someone puts into writing to me that they want a book looked at, and I'll tell you how we look at it, and then I make a decision, and if the person doesn't like the decision, they can appeal it up to the board. In the last 2 or 3 years, and I'm doing this I didn't research this tonight, right? But just from my memory, we probably have had 5 such inquiries. And 3 of them, the book stayed where it was. One was earlier this year, where it was a book that really promoted a racial stereotype that was in the library, a book that, if I mentioned the book, if I mentioned the author, you'd probably know what I'm talking about. And that was in the library, and that was asked to be removed. And we felt it was by the publisher of that book company. They suggested it should be removed, and it was just an oversight that it was there. And then there's the book in question now. The book in question now came into this district when I was the English supervisor, the language arts supervisor. I brought it in for diversity, and before we talked about diversity, it's about like 1995 maybe, in our high school language arts program. How it got from high school to 6th grade, I should know, but I don't know. It's happened sometime 7 or 8 years ago, and I don't know how it got there. It is a supplemental book, which means it's not mandated on the curriculum, but every language arts program, we have a whole plethora of books that if a teacher wants to use it to augment a lesson, they can. And that was one of these books. And what I was told by the administration and by the supervisor is that this book has not been used in sixth grade for the last several years. When we look into a book, we contact not only the supervisor, the teachers, the administrator. We also reach out to the National Council of Teachers of English, to the National Council of Librarians. We look for their guidance, what they think about the book. And quite frankly, this book in particular, to me, seemed like it was best suited, although the Lexile reading said it was sixth grade, but that's Lexile reading says a lot of things for sixth and seventh grade. I thought some of the topics and my own recollection of 25, 28 years ago when I brought it in was it was more of a middle school book or a freshman book. So the term abeyance doesn't mean we're banning it. The term abeyance means we're temporarily suspending it, and it hasn't been used for like the last 3 or 4 years. And I think the reason why it hasn't been used is because some of the teachers shared the same thought that I probably had. And we want to get the middle school teachers together to say, what do you think of this book? Because it does have all those qualities of a diverse writer and diverse people. That's why I brought it in 27 years ago, 25 years ago. But I think it might be better suited on grades 7 or 8 or 9. And that's the discussion we want to have. I've spent most of my pre-administrative life, right, before I crossed over to the dark side, like the teachers like to say, okay, I spent most of that life as an English teacher, okay, and an English supervisor who fought the fight against banning books because the idea of books and of education is critical thinking. It's not to suppress thinking. But age appropriateness does matter. Okay? And I make decisions and recommendations not based on the climate or my mood or wherever it comes from, whoever makes the request. I make it based on what's in the best interest of the students. So we didn't ban a book. We took a time out on a book that hasn't been used in a number of years to have the teachers reassess what value the book has. It has a lot of value. I mean, it won the Columbus Foundation's American Book Award in 1985, all that kind of stuff. But where does it best belong? And I can assure you that there were 2 or 3 books that came to my desk, and the board heard about them in executive session because the answer was no, this book is staying where it is. But, you know, I got to do the right thing. And that's why that decision was made. So I hope that clarifies a little bit that decision. Like I said in the beginning of my remarks, you know, sometimes you get an answer, you know, you may not like it or you may like it. You may agree, you may not, you may disagree, but I'm not going to, you know, ever duck an answer. And that's why it was done. Okay? I appreciate what everybody's comments were. I will tell you that the term that goes back probably to the 1980s again, educating the whole child is what education's about. And as long as I'm here, we're going to continue to educate the whole child. Okay?
Thank you, Mr. Hurley. I'm not going to echo any of your comments. I think they were well said. I do want to thank everyone who came out this evening to speak, and I want to reiterate the importance of hearing from all of you in the community because it does help give perspective on all of your thoughts, and we are one community, and that is really important. There was a comment made about, you know, some boards having social agendas or political agendas, and one of the things I've been very proud of on this board is that we are an apolitical, asocial board. We do not have political agendas. We don't have social agendas. And, you know, we're all parents or grandparents of children in the district who want the best for all of our children. So we do have to operate that way, and I want to go on the record and saying that is how we operate. And finally, I just want to say that it is not easy to moderate an open session, and I just want to say that I encourage all of you to continue to, you know, speak up at board meetings, and you know, it's important to me that in facilitating these open sessions that everyone feels a level of comfort being able to speak. And part of why I asked for everyone to really do their best to be respectful is because I don't want people to ever feel intimidated or like they don't want to come to a meeting, they don't want to speak. So that's not the kind of town we are. It's not the type of community we are. So I thank you for all of your comments, and that's what I wanted to say. Any comments from board members? Hearing none, there is a need for executive session. We have 2 student matters and 1 legal update, no actions to be taken. We're also going to go over board evaluation. We'll be out for about 20 minutes. Can I get a motion? James Bogosian, Mr. Mazzone, seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
All right, we are going to executive session. Thank you.